All right, now let's move our focus to the supplementary budget to be delivered by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni tomorrow. Of course, the budget was already delivered in February, but things changed. The COVID-19 pandemic hit South Africa, and government has said it would need to loan additional funds to reallocate some spending more towards health and more towards social grants. The supplementary budget will explain how the 500 billion rand COVID-19 support and rescue package announced by the President earlier will be funded, and how South Africa will deal with the dramatic decline that we've seen in tax revenues. Now, to look ahead to tomorrow, Maudi Lentsoane is the CEO of Lehumo Investments. He joins us now. Thank you for being with us, Maudi. Do you believe this budget is going to have to be overhauled compared to what we heard in February?
Good evening, Francis. It's a very difficult position that the minister finds himself in. They certainly are going to be, I think, an overhaul. I mean, if you look at the budget that was presented in February, it's almost irrelevant. And I think, a number of things that were mentioned there are not going to be implemented. There were a number of things, for instance, the whole, cuts on the wage bill. We know that he has already faced some difficulties there. There has been some resistance. So there's a lot that was presented in February that I think it's going to be a very difficult one to really implement. Yeah. And therefore, we're looking at this supplementary budget, which is going to have to give us new directions about, what our budget looks like.
Well, let's start with the wage bill. So government essentially wanting to renege on an earlier agreement about hikes that were to be implemented this year. There's been huge pushback and huge economic turmoil since. What do you expect him to say?
Look, it's a tough one. I think the fact of the matter is government simply doesn't have money to finance those increases, let alone some of the spending that were announced in the February budget. So I think it's not even a matter of whether they have a choice to choose between whether agreeing to those demands. They simply don't have a space to maneuver. We know there's already a lot of pressure. They've had to reprioritize, to fight the COVID-19. And therefore, I don't think he's got much room to really say, with regards to that matter. I think it's going to really just confirm the inevitable, which is they simply can't afford to accede to those demands.
He said 130 billion rand would be allocated as well from other government departments to health and welfare. That was part of the big package for COVID-19 announced earlier. So that means some departments will have to give up funds. Any expectations around that?
Yeah, that's exactly what has been happening. I think, as the government reprioritize and ensure that, the health department correctly so gets the larger share of the budget to try and deal with the pandemic, you are going to see, other departments, of course, getting less, in terms of the allocation. And we are seeing, particularly within the other departments, such as your spending on infrastructure, those have been reallocated. And I think a larger part of that is going to come from those departments as well, to make sure that the health department, has money to fight the pandemic and ensure that there's enough funds for them to deal with the problems.
And a lot of the funds, the remainder will have to be loaned. A lot of concern, Maudi, about where those funds will come from. Maybe we'll have to use foreign funds now. A country like America, for example, has this incredible debt burden. Why is it so worrying that an economy like South Africa, with our circumstances, is taking on so much debt?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. Basically, what we have experienced in 2020 is it's a crisis that we've never seen, and I think at some point we're going to obviously have to accede to the fact that we don't have much room. Luckily, and I know there's been a lot of noise about whether or not we should go into the IMF or even some of these international, money lenders to try and borrow to supplement what we have. And I think we should actually hit the call, because there has been some packages that were made specifically to fight COVID-19. So I don't think it's a negative, as it's been made to look like it is a negative thing. I think we should be able to head the call of the likes of the IMF to go and take those packages to try and fight this unprecedented, very difficult situation that we find ourselves in. And America, you correctly say, they're sitting with the massive debt. We need to obviously acknowledge the fact that we are going to find ourselves moving in that direction as well, to fight the situation. It's very unprecedented where we are, very difficult position. I mean, you look at unemployment numbers. We need to do everything in our power to make sure that we turn the situation around.
All right, let's see how the finance minister deals with all these economic realities tomorrow. That was Maudi Lentsoane, CEO of Lehumo Investments.